right, welcome to the Woodshed. Got a special guest here today, Miss Carol Jean Wood. Miss Carol Jean Wood moved to San Antonio from California a few years back, and tell us a little bit about why you came from California and when did you get to California?
LA was getting increasingly more expensive to live. I was not a homeowner. I lived in apartments for 42 years and saved my money all along the way so that I could move back to Texas, which is a state that I considered home, where my family was, and decided to come back.
And when did you get to California?
I went to California in 1974. So born in Kentucky.
Kentucky? Where in Kentucky?
Fort Campbell.
Fort Campbell, okay.
And lived in Tennessee, but I can't remember the name of the Clarksville.
Clarksville, okay.
Thank you.
All right, perfect.
So I graduated from college from UT Austin, and I had a degree in geography and East Asian studies, and I did not have a job. I had always wanted to work for National Geographic, hence those majors. But when I applied to National Geographic and to do the things I wanted to do, they said I needed multiple degrees in multiple areas, and I was done with school. So that wasn't going to happen. So I ended up moving back home to Dallas and had an opportunity to do some volunteer work at the Texas State Fair for the Japan National Tourist Organization.
Awesome.
And it was during that volunteer effort that I met a man that hired me to come to Los Angeles and work at the Japan National Tourist Organization there to do research, because I had a background in East Asian studies, could speak a little Japanese. Deep down inside, I had always been a fan of Carol Burnett.
Uh-oh.
And I thought I would love to work at CBS. So this NBC page said he knew a contact at CBS, because it's all about who you know in that industry.
Right.
So he got me an interview at CBS to become a page. Now I've got a degree in geography and East Asian studies, and now I want to become an usher. So I took the interview. Unfortunately, there were no job openings, and I was sort of distraught, and I moved back to Texas. So about 3 or 4 months later, my mother comes to me and says, "There's a phone call for you from CBS." I went, "What?" And they decided I made a good impression, so they wanted to hire me now as an usher at CBS. So I moved back to Los Angeles.
Did they pay for your travel, or did
No.
you have to fund that on your own?
I had to do that on my
Now,
own.
cost of living was probably different back then, so it was an entry-level job, but you could, you lived in California, so you were able to obviously afford to live there on this job, right? Or-
Okay, but California or Los Angeles in 1974 wasn't what it is now.
Right.
I had a cute single apartment 2 blocks from CBS, $50 a month.
Oh, my God.
Okay, and I can't remember what I made,
Yeah.
but it was probably $80 a week. And I was never in debt, had plenty of food, went out with friends.
Yeah.
So it all worked out.
Yeah, back then you could kind of do that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay, so your first job was an usher, but you didn't always stay an usher, obviously.
No, you weren't allowed to be an usher for longer than 16 months.
Okay, so that was like the, see if you're going to work out kind of thing, or...
That was an opportunity. Most of the ushers either had relatives that were already in the industry.
Got it.
And or super radio, television, film graduates from top schools. Then there was me. So, but I wanted to work on the Carol Burnett show, and I found out after becoming an usher that they only hired ushers to work on the Carol Burnett show that had at least worked a year. Maybe 8 months to a year.
That kind of counterintuitive. They'll let you be 6 months, but
well,
so how
you
do you
worked
get
other shows.
Oh, I got you.
Because the Carol Burnett show was the most professionally run show, and the one everybody that wanted to work on.
Absolutely.
So that was not going to work for me. So I went into my boss, and in the meantime, I had been learning everybody's name, everybody's face, everybody what their job was on the Carol Burnett show, so that I would be up to par with the ones that had worked there 8 months.
Yeah, no.
So I said, give me a test. I want to work on this show. Give me a test. Ask me who anybody is. So he would give me a name. I'd tell them what they look like, what they did, and he hired me I was a newbie, but I got to work on the Carol
Was that a
Burnett
big
show.
jump in pay going from an usher to what you want to go do for this?
No, that was just to be an usher on the Carol Burnett show. That wasn't even to work on the Carol Burnett show. That was just to be an usher on the Carol Burnett show. So, no, it was no difference in pay because we were just paid usher salaries.
Yeah. Was there like unions and all that stuff?
Not for us.
Okay. All right,
not for us.
Because, I mean, there is for actors, I guess, and something like that.
Yeah.
So you're an usher, and then when did you kind of ascend out from being an usher, or tell me about that?
Somebody came to me. I don't remember her name. She didn't work on the Carol Burnett show, but she knew people that worked on the Carol Burnett show. And she said that Carol Burnett's husband was looking for someone to be an assistant to the writers and music writers on the Smothers Brothers show. Because the Smothers Brothers, their CBS show, they would what we would call now politically incorrect.
Absolutely.
So they got fired.
Yeah.
But Carol Burnett's husband loved them, and he wanted to bring them back. So
he was based. Yeah.
He sold them to NBC. So somebody said, "Would you like to go work with the Smothers Brothers, Carol Burnett's husband's executive producing?" And I'm like, well, of course. And I'd been an usher for 7 months at that point. So they said, okay. So they hired me, and I knew nothing. I knew nothing about scripts, about where
they can mold you that
commercials,
way.
anything. So the Carol Burnett show actually had me come up while I was an usher to their offices X amount of hours a week to be trained.
Okay.
So I was being trained by the best in the business.
Yeah.
So then we had an office until we could move over to NBC. We had an office for the Smothers Brothers up on Sunset Boulevard. Now, here's the problem. My first day on the job working at the Smothers Brothers show was I got a phone call. I didn't know which one was Dick and which one was Tom.
Oh, which Smothers brother was which Smothers brother?
So the call came in for Dick. And I went, I'll take my chances. I'm 50-50 chance. So I went to Tom. He said, that's my brother. I'm like, I'm so sorry. And then I'm thinking, oh, what did they hire?
Well, they're twins, right? I mean, they look...
No, they don't look alike.
They don't look alike? I can't remember.
And they don't
I remember the
talk
name,
alike.
but I sort of remember one.
You've got to watch YouTube. They're wonderful.
Yeah.
So anyway, we moved into NBC. And then some of the writers' names that I worked for, that you'll appreciate one of them, Mason Williams, the guitarist.
Okay.
He had a big hit, Classical Gas.
Yeah.
I worked for Chevy Chase.
Oh my God.
So yeah, there was just 10 writers, and they had all gone on to other things in later years.
Sure.
Very successful people.
And so after Smothers Brothers, did you end up mapping back over to Carol Burnett's side of things?
Well, here's what happened.
Okay.
I never applied. I always thought that was a pipe dream to ever work on the Carol Burnett show, other than an usher. And I never applied. I didn't know how to do it. I mean, that group had been together for years. They knew they were just the cream of the crop. And so I was in the stairwell one day at NBC, and Joe Hamilton's assistant came up to me and said, would you like to be the assistant to the writers and music writers on the Carol Burnett show? I'm going to cry just telling you this. I'm like, what? I thought I was in a dream.
Yeah.
Because that Smothers Brothers show was canceled.
Yeah.
They had 13 episodes at NBC, so that was that. So that's how I got my job on the Carol Burnett show.
And what was your role there?
Same one. Assistant to the writers and music writers. I worked for 10 script writers.
Yeah.
This is before computers, before word processors. All I had was an IBM Selectric and 3 music writers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did it help that, because you know how to play piano. In fact, I think you teach piano. So did it help? Did your musical background help in that role too?
Absolutely.
Okay.
In fact, I just want to back up one of the neatest things, and I wish you had been there with me. Sometimes in the evenings, at the end of the workday, Tom and Dick were both musicians, guitar, bass.
Yeah.
And when we'd have these certain guest stars, like Mason Williams,
right.
Well, actually, he wasn't a guest star; he was a writer. But we'd have guest stars, everyone from like Barry Manilow,
right.
Hoyt Axton, Rita Coolidge. Sometimes they would gather in Tom and Dick's office and we'd jam.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
the assistants like me would come in and just sit there and be in awe. So you would have loved that.
Yeah, I know how you feel when when Cliff and the boys come over and play. They're prodigies. They're on another level of existence.
But I would just sit there and go, how did I go from being at UT, majoring in geography, to sitting in a room with these famous musicians?
Life's
how does
funny.
that happen?
Life's funny
how does that
way.
happen? I didn't major in radio, television, film. I didn't know anything. I learned while I worked.
Yeah, meanwhile, people who do major in it don't, they give
I know,
that up and
and
go
I used to feel guilty about that because I knew people that moved to LA to want to get in the business, and they had all the background in the world, and I kept asking myself, well, why me? Why did I get it? So
you present yourself as not only competent but also a joy to be with, and that goes a long way.
Hey, thank you.
I would say so. I expect an extra fat Christmas card this time next year. So, okay. So you're working at Carol Burnett. You're assistant to those writers. Does the career progress more from there as far as with Carol Burnett? Like any more advancements or anything like that, or?
No,
Okay.
because the show. One thing I had not taken into consideration was these shows don't last forever.
Absolutely.
They go off. And by the time I got onto the show, I think I ushered the 6th season. Is that right? No. I ushered the 7th season, and I think I worked 8th, 9th, and 10th season. I may be a little off on my years.
Okay.
And then for the 11th season, which was their final season, they had pretty much let go of a lot of the staff and were sort of operating at more bare bones.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, they saw the writing on the wall, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, okay, stopping right there at Carol Burnett and before, tell me about some of the acquaintances or friends you made that were in the business, like celebrities or anything. Or did you have any friends that were celebrities, or
no, actually,
that you palled around with a little bit?
No.
Okay.
On the side, I was ice skating. I was a member of the Los Angeles Figure Skating Club, and I will say that 90% of my friends were from the skating world. And then, of course, they all had other kinds of jobs.
Absolutely. Okay, I understand.
Architects, teachers, nurses, whatever. But I was in the lives of some of the celebrities. So Tim Conway would hire me to house sit.
Oh, that's great.
Leave the 6 kids there. And I'll tell you a funny story about house sitting for Tim Conway.
Yeah.
So his wife was away. He was off to do a movie or something. They did have a live-in housekeeper.
Right.
And she had her own little house out in the back in their property. So he said, Carol, feel free to take my Mercedes, take the 6 kids out to dinner, feel free. And now these kids were in, I'd say between 6 and 15 maybe at the time. 6 of them, 6.
Yeah, wow.
So I said, well, Tim, I don't feel comfortable driving your Mercedes, and I'm 25 years old. I don't want to wreck somebody's Mercedes. So anyway, I drove my little, I think it was a 1968. No. This was the Chevrolet Nova Concourse, and it was new.
Oh.
So I piled these 6 kids in, and we took them to dinner, and they said, Carol, can we stop at Save On, which is like a Walgreens?
Yeah.
Can we stop
Toys.
at Save On and get, soda and candy? And I'm like, I want them to like me. So I said, yes, of course. So what do they buy? They buy Cokes and Pop Rocks.
Oh, my God.
Let me just say that by the time I got them back to their home in Encino, my interior of my car was covered with exploded grape Pop Rocks.
It's even funnier because it's Tim Conway's kids, and it's like
they'll like him.
I would expect nothing less,
Exactly. Well, I was mortified. I didn't know enough about cars to know that upholstery is it was easy to clean.
Yeah.
But I got home and I said, you guys are not coming in the house till every little grape spot.
Oh, you got on her case.
And now I didn't care if they liked me. So it's like,
that's hilarious.
I valued my car.
I remember watching that show. And even as a kid, I would laugh until my side hurt. I mean, especially with Tim Conway and Harvey Korman. And the thing is, it was completely wholesome and clean comedy. There was no vulgarity. There was no weirdo stuff or anything like that. And it was just kind of nice because it was just genuine, straight, almost slapstick kind of, vaudeville in some respects. Those skits were. And, of course, Carol was always wonderful. And I was really happy to see her on Better Call Saul, because I thought her acting career, I thought she was, enjoying retirement, let's say.
Yes.
And I didn't realize that she would still have the energy and wherewithal to, to get in front of the camera again. It was very nice to see that. Now, granted, episodes I'm watching are 2 years old, but still.
Well, I recall her saying on other interview shows years ago that when she goes, she hopes she goes doing what she loves.
Well, don't we all,
Yeah.
So she, but I think it's also fair to say that you were more than just probably an employee to some of those folks, and they knew who you were. You may not have been buds or pals, but I think
the music writers like Ken and Mitzi Welch, they have a Grammy Award-winning daughter. I don't remember her name, but she did some of the music on "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?"
Oh, okay, yeah,
okay.
George Clooney and
So if you look up that, you'll see
the remake of the Odyssey, but in 1800s.
So they would hire me to work at their house in the summers because we had a hiatus. You didn't work 12 months a year,
right?
So I would get hired by some of the people on the show to do things for them during the time off. But I would play tennis with them.
Oh, good.
So I, there was some interaction.
Sure.
But you have to remember it was a business, and Carol was our boss
business
and her
is business.
husband.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think, a lot of times better that the employees are employees. And
yeah, I know it has to be.
But it was a family feel.
Yeah.
I got up every morning and I couldn't believe where I was going to work. I couldn't believe it. It's like every morning it was like, oh my
Cloud
gosh,
nine.
I'm so lucky.
Yeah.
And because I worked on that show, everything I learned on that show, they were the top of the top.
Yeah.
Just the way they ran the show, the quality of the talent, the reputation. Now,
you didn't just work with Carol Burnett's show. I mean, there was a time, like you said, when that went off the air.
Well, that's what I was going to...
Okay.
So because I had that training and that show went off the air, I ended up working for more wonderful production companies because I had worked on the Carol Burnett show. I think that's what got my foot in the door for any other job I got. It's like, oh, you worked on Carol Burnett. Okay. So I ended up working for Mary Tyler Moore Productions.
Yeah. Yeah. That was that. So those were the little kittens that came on the end.
Yes.
Okay. And I forgot the name of that production company. It was like a knockoff of
MGM.
Yeah.
It was a knockoff of MGM with the lion.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. No,
okay.
You're fine. Cut. No.
And I worked for also, because there were times where you're between shows.
Right. And
I wasn't real sure now. Now I'm getting a little older and I'm not sure how I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
But I love being in that industry. And I didn't come out of the womb knowing I want to be a doctor or a lawyer or professor. All I knew is that I loved entertainment. I wanted to be in that environment. But I never voiced that. I didn't plan my life around that because it seemed too far-fetched. It was just a fantasy.
Yeah, I got you.
But I think one of the things you wanted me to discuss was why did you go to California in the first place?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, other than just a job, I guess.
Besides the Japan Trade Center.
Yeah.
One of the things that I would always want to live in California for was because when I'd get home from school, when I was like 12, 13, 14, there was a show on ABC called Where the Action Is.
Oh.
And it was an offshoot of American Bandstand. It was hosted by Dick Clark. And their house band was Paul Revere and the Raiders.
I remember them. I got the CD.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I would run home from school and I would watch this show and I just wanted to be in that television set. This is where I belong.
Yeah.
I belong in this, on this beach with these people dressed like that and listening to music. And that was always just in the back of my head. Someday I'm going to live in California. And
California is a place to do it, obviously, at that time.
So between the Japan Trade Center and my little fantasy, it just seemed like the right thing to do to go to California.
So what would you, after Carol Burnett, and then you went to work with the little kitten.
Mary Tyler Moore Productions. I worked...
plus the spin-offs, right? Like Rhoda, and did you do any of those?
Yeah, Rhoda was my main show that I worked on. And I actually, my one and only screen credit.
Yeah.
And
I saw your names go by.
It goes by so fast.
Yeah.
But it was my first screen credit, and on the night of the first show of the season that would be broadcast,
right?
Her husband, Grant Tinker, had a big dinner for us at a fancy restaurant up on Sunset Boulevard, and he had TV monitors mounted on the walls. So cast and crew all were there. And I was getting so excited because we ate dinner, we watched the show together, and they started rolling the credits, and I was picturing my parents at home in Dallas, like, they're gonna see my name on TV. And when my name came up, I screamed. It was just so unbelievably exciting. So Grant Tinker, Mary Tyler Moore's husband, got up out of his chair, and he came over and he stood by, and I'm just so embarrassed because I'm the only one that screamed. And he stood behind my chair and put his hands up on the chair, and he said, "Now here's someone who just saw her first screen credit."
Yeah. In fact, in other words, he wasn't surprised you acted like that. That's good.
I was.
And I know Grandpa, and Grandma were very proud of you. They always, because when I would visit them up in Dallas back in the day, you're often, except for maybe holidays or something, you're mostly in California. And Grandma never stopped talking about you, and drive my dad nuts, of course. But and Sharon didn't really care, but my Aunt Sharon, your sister, but my dad would just bang his head on the wall. But I thought it was cool because I thought I didn't know anybody that knew anybody that knew anybody.
But your dad certainly wanted me to send him those CBS Sports hats.
Well, obviously, yeah. And he was into photography at the time, and. I used to dunk on him because he'd wear the camera to wear the hat. I go, you're just posing, and he'd get angry with me. And I was only like 12,